The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Jack Baruzzini. Hey, Jack.
Hey, Dom.
And Thomas Sanjurjo. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, Dom. It's good to be here.
Folks, I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network you are sure to enjoy, and especially right now, because big things are about to happen, The Secrets of Star Wars. Mandalorian Season 3 is coming, folks. You gotta watch that, and you gotta see Grogu, and then you're gonna want to tune into the Secrets of Star Wars to listen to all the great conversation about it. And you can find that wherever fine podcasts are found, or at sqpn.com/Star Wars. And I just wanted to note, we're not making a big deal about it, but this is the 200th episode of Secrets of Technology.
Oh, nice.
Which
is fun. I think we did kind of a special panel for the 100th. But we're as human beings, we make a big deal out of big round numbers. We don't necessarily have to do that for every big round number. But I just wanted to note that we've been going at this for, I think, 4 years now. Yeah, just about a little more than 4 years. And it's been a great experience. I love doing this show. And I'm really grateful for everyone who listens, for everyone who contributes, and especially to my co-hosts, the two of whom are here with me today. So just really excited to start the next 100.
What we should do is, since we're a tech show, we should celebrate like episode 256, episode 512.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, why are we not doing binary celebrations here?
We should totally do that. Yes, we will do the binary celebrations. I'll put that on the schedule. 256, you're next. All right, let's get ready to today's topics. Our first one comes courtesy of an article in The Atlantic, and it's titled "The Hidden Cost of Cheap TVs." And this is very interesting because the article lays out, like, why are TVs so cheap? You know, everything else has gone up in price. In the past 20 years, you know, you go back and you look at food, cars, everything is more expensive today. But TVs aren't. In fact, TVs are ridiculously cheap compared to that. He makes a note that in 2013, an 85-inch 4K TV cost $40,000, and today you could get one for $1,300 for 85. I don't have an 85-inch wall, but so you can do that. And so he goes into why. Now, some of it has to do with supply and demand, market competition. The ability to make them cheaper, the fact that smart TVs are often just very simple things on the inside these days. They're just a couple of components, the LCD and a couple other things. But then he notes, and I think it's a he, I keep saying he, but Justin. Yeah. He notes one of the reasons it's so cheap is because the smart TVs are collecting data, and data, as we've talked about a lot, is worth a lot of money. So what do you guys think of about just in general? Are we paying too high a price for our cheap TVs?
I think as long as you know what you're getting into, it's okay. There's also a lot of ways to circumvent this if you know what you're doing. It's funny that we're talking about this because this weekend my parents told me that they got a new TV and it was so cheap, and they said, apparently it has a microphone in it, though, which is kind of odd, but, whatever. So this is very timely.
At least it said it had a microphone in it.
Yeah, because it has voice activation. So at least it's using it for something for your benefit.
Right. Thomas, what do you think?
Honestly, at this point, you're deceiving yourself if you think that the things you're using are not tracking you. Like, it's really just, it's gotten to that point. And the convenience of a smart TV is that there are a lot of apps on it that tend to make your life easier. And those apps are also gathering data on you as well. So, if you're watching Netflix is gathering data about your Netflix habits. And, if you're Amazon Prime, same thing. Apple TV, same thing. They're all gathering data on you. So it's hard to like get riled up about it, honestly, at this point. And again, it all comes back to, if something is free or cheap, you are the commodity that's being bought. It's plain and simply it.
One of the things I think we've said this before on the show is, if you get a smart TV, don't connect it to the internet. Like, the first thing to do is just don't if it offers to plug in an Ethernet cable, don't plug in an Ethernet cable. Don't set up Wi-Fi on it. You don't need to use the built-in smart TV features in order to get the smart TV functionality. Like you said, no matter what, if you're using Disney Plus or Netflix or Hulu or whatever, they know what you're watching. Sure, okay, of course. But there are ways to limit how much, because if you're using the smart, like Samsung Smart TV, it knows everything you're watching, whereas Disney Plus only knows what you're watching on Disney Plus. You can limit the amount of data that they're collecting from you. And especially if you connect, as the article says, if you connect your Google account or a Facebook account to your TV, now it's connecting that to all your Google activity and Facebook activities. You're going to start seeing ads based on it. So I would say, get a third-party smart TV device.
Like a Chromecast or something.
Chromecast. Yeah. So I like the Apple TV because, Apple says it doesn't sell that data. It may look at that data internally, but it says it doesn't sell the data. Now, if it turned out that they were selling the data, that would be very bad for Apple. So, and you could figure that out, right? You could figure, if they were selling the data, someone would be able to see where that was going out, perhaps. So they'd know it was out there. So I would say, like, an app, if you're a Mac user, iOS user, an Apple TV is a pretty good device because it has all the same channels and stuff. Am I off base? Should you build your own media center PC? Would that be a better deal?
You can do that. You can do it with Plex. I actually found out that there's a lot of ways to link stuff into my Plex account, and I can stream through my Plex account. Now, I'm so far down the rabbit hole with like a smart TV and stuff plugged in. I don't really want to build it at this point. I'm like, whatever. I don't care. And then the thing that just blows my mind about it is, like, for Netflix, it started sending me these updates on my phone about, hey, you might be interested in this. And for whatever reason, it is stuck recommending the Witcher fireplace thing to me indefinitely. Like, that's what it sends on a regular basis. Like, continue watching, and I'm like, no, I'm done watching the fireplace. It's definitely not cold enough here for me to need a Witcher fireplace.
So this is like just like a looping image of a fireplace from the set of The Witcher. Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's it. Like the U-log things. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm like, seriously, Netflix, like, if you can't recommend anything better, come on. What's going on? But yeah, I don't know. You can. So you can definitely sit down and spend the time, like, trying to build kind of your personal media library. And I would recommend Plex as a starting point for this, because I think the Plex community is really good. They have a lot of really good resources for this kind of thing. There's a lot of really good workarounds. You can rip all of your own DVDs onto it, and now you got a media server for your family that's very easily usable. My whole family uses it all the time. It's a lot of work, though. And it is. That's something. It does take a lot of effort, and it does take a little bit of know-how in the tech space to get it set up right and running well. Now, not too much. You don't have to be like a complete networking nerd like me, but it does take a little bit of work.
Yeah.
So just be aware. Yeah.
I've been a Plex user for years, and I love having it. I've ripped a lot of stuff and that sort of thing. And they, like you said, they're adding new features all the time. So it doesn't have to be all about your ripped stored content if that's not something you want to do. But yeah, Plex is a really good option. Yeah. I'm thinking of other options that are out there. Jack, what do you do for streaming for you? Do you use a smart TV? Do you have a smart box?
So we have an old Samsung TV that I actually found at the thrift store. So I'm not sure if it has any of the smart features. I think it does, but I've honestly never used them because I just use the Chromecast. And so, like we were talking about, it really is just pick your poison.
Yeah.
One thing I do actually is use Pluto TV a lot because it's got a lot of free channels on there and free streaming stuff, and it's got advertising. But I mean, it's free, so that's the trade-off you get.
Pluto's kind of just like old broadcast TV, right? Like it's whatever happens to be airing when you turn it on, and you just watch it from there. Is that the one? That one?
It is. It also has on-demand stuff. That's actually where I've been watching Stargate, because it can't decide where it's going to go on a streaming service. But they have all of Stargate on there right now, so it's got commercials. But and it is nice to have that. It's very nostalgic to like just put on the Star Trek channel and watch like a Star Trek marathon or whatever.
Right. Takes me back to those days coming home from school, turn on the TV and just sitting and watch whatever's on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Another really good service that's out there right now is called Canopy too. And it's a lot of libraries connect to it. So similar to how you can go to like Libby and get books from your library, Canopy has a lot of movies that are available. And it was weird because I found this one out because my son was interested in watching the Brotherhood of the Wolf as part of his like theater. Like he wanted to watch a movie that he'd never seen before and that would probably not be in his normal field of things. And I was like, oh dude, I saw this movie like in 2000. It was like it was really weird. And I think you would enjoy it. And so we watched it, but we watched it on Canopy because it was the only place that I could find it. But we use it for all sorts of stuff where it's, you just put your library card in and you can access a bunch of free movies, and it's offbeat stuff, but there's a lot of good stuff on there that you would have access to.
Canopy with a K, folks. I'll put
with a K.
Yes. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Check that out.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So there are options where you don't, is someone still tracking you? Sure. But you know what? Back cable TV was tracking what they were sending out too. I mean, that's
what the Nielsen ratings are.
You're right. So it's it's not really all that new. It would be nice if, since we're paying for things, that they wouldn't, be selling information. But like you said, cheap TV means that they're making their money somewhere. It was interesting in the article. It talked about how much money Roku is making from the data collection, and in addition to selling ad space on the service. Does that concern you at all with the Roku?
It got us the Weird Al movie, so I'm kind of okay with it. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, is there are trade-offs. I mean, it's not
right.
I mean, you could be a real, privacy, maniac about things, and I want ultimate privacy and nothing known about me by anyone anywhere. Or you can just kind of go with it and say, look, some of the information about what I do is not that important that I don't really care that they know about it,
Mm-hmm.
I think a good way to approach this is to kind of pick where you're going to put your focus. Like, because really, if you're going to be very concerned about privacy to the point that you don't want ads marketed to you on your TV, which, I mean, I understand that in principle. It's just a matter of the effort going to go through that to not do that. But if you have a smartphone, it stops there and you're already spreading all that data. So unless you want to get rid of your phone, you don't do it. But what I do is, like, I use Linux on the desktop. I try to use Brave as my browser. So I focus it on like places where I feel like my data is going to be more personalized, and I don't want that out there. But I honestly don't really care who knows what TV I'm watching.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. There was a scare a few years ago that there was you mentioned your folks getting a TV with a microphone, and that Samsung had something in their terms of service agreement that they could record, like if they could make recordings of you, and it turns out most people kind of said, oh, that's just the same sort of thing that Echo does and the HomePods do. They might capture your voice. That's what they're listening all the time, waiting for the activation word, and they may accidentally record some stuff. So that's just gloriously covering themselves. But it is still a concern. I mean, if I had a way to go in and physically disconnect the microphone, that's inside the TV, I probably would. Like, I just don't like the idea of, I feel like that's another line that we're crossing. The idea that they're recording conversations in the room, that I'm talking with my wife or talking with my kids. That's the sort of thing I feel like is a step too far. But am I being paranoid?
I wouldn't say you're being paranoid, because it is a real concern, but it's kind of like, what are you going to do?
Right.
Maybe that's just rolling over, but I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like that for me, any new TV I get, I'm still not going to connect it to the Wi-Fi, to the network, so that it can't communicate out. And I feel better that way. And maybe it's completely a placebo effect, but who knows? But at least that I feel like I'm doing something to protect a little bit of privacy.
Yeah, and you have to pick, who has your data too. That's the other thing is I think it's funny because you talk about being loyal to Apple because Apple makes good decisions about things in general. And if anything got out about them, then it would be really bad. Same thing with Google. Samsung, yeah. I don't know that Samsung has an image to maintain in that way. So,
right.
if your Samsung smart TV is listening to you and they're doing something nefarious, they get in trouble for it. And what? They're a technology company.
Right. Go buy a TV from someone else. Right. Yeah.
And a lot of these cheap TVs, like TCL is a Chinese company. There's a lot of these very affordable TVs that are kind of no-name companies. So you got to be aware of that when you're buying one.
Right. Who owns TCL and who's behind it? Right. That sort of stuff. You do really have to. It's one of those cases where I feel better about Google than I do about no name, brand, Chinese or other, not even just China, but other countries too. Just like no name companies. I always am a little wary of, like, I never buy smart home stuff from companies that I don't know, I don't recognize the name and that sort of stuff. Just because you don't know. And that's one case where a name brand at least feels a little, they're accountable. You know who they are. They're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. You know what I mean? That they have information. Right. They can be tracked down. So,
and it matters to them. Like it makes a difference. What that image that they have to maintain is important. Right.
Exactly. So, all right. So I guess. I guess that's all there is to say about that. Let's before we move on, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Technology, including Nathan S., Joseph H., Jeff H., Tom B., and Gretchen B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest, and you could join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Next story is related to, well, it's the big story. I mean, this might be the story of 2023, is these new chat AIs, the AIs that people can talk to and get information from. And I think everyone kind of feels like we're on the edge of something new. And so we're all kind of excited about every new thing that comes out. And the latest thing that came out was Microsoft announces a new Bing search and Edge browser powered by a version of the ChatGPT AI. Microsoft's been a big investor in the OpenAI Foundation, which created the ChatGPT. And so it's still in a beta. You have to get a wait list and you have to use the Edge browser to do it. But people have been using it and reporting on it. And there's been some interesting thoughts, things coming out about this thing. Not all of it makes you feel good. Some of it's a little worrisome. But Joanna Stern from the New York Wall Street Journal, I was going to say the Wall Street Journal, had an article that we'll link to that talks about her experience with it. And she seems generally bullish on the Bing search, within its limitations. And also there's a new AI button in the Edge browser that will help you compose emails or other things as well. Okay. So let's start with that. One of the things that Microsoft promoter was like, it can help professionals draft memos and emails and students to create drafts of their essays. And that was a red flag for me. Because this is one of the concerns a lot of people have about these chat AIs is they are going to give people the false impression that I can complete tasks that probably shouldn't be completed by an AI. So what do you guys think of just in general, the proliferation of this into search and these helpers, assistants? Hey, it looks like you're trying to write an email. Clippy AI.
It's Clippy. Oh, no, not Clippy. No.
So what do you think first of this first part? And then we can get into the Bing Sydney thing in a second, but just this first part anyway.
I am very bullish on this. Like this is, I use this daily in my work now currently, very, very regularly. And I just want to be clear. I don't use it for anything that actually sees someone other than me. It is an idea. It is a note bouncing point. And just to give an example, like there's one particular customer that I'm working with that has this regulation that they're trying to meet, and we're helping them get there. And I have no idea what this regulation is. It's like it's like a 48-page federal document that's all legalese and awful, and I don't want to read this thing and learn about it, but I need to know what it is. And and there's some resources out there to do that, but I jumped on ChatGPT, started asking questions about it, ended up with 6 points that I could go back to talk to the customer about and say, hey, these things are things that you're doing that are related to this, and here's how we can help you with those. And that was what it was. Dramatically simplified the process of coming to that and of offering that conclusion. Now, I didn't just take those 6 things and like hand them over. I looked at those 6 things and said, here's where I can add value using this kind of list of things. And that's really powerful. And it's the same kind of thing where we came with Midjourney when we were talking about it not replacing artists, but giving artists a leg up in that initial legwork phase. That's where I think this is a really powerful thing as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I actually have been using it to you could like write PowerShell scripts and stuff. Like I'll give it what I want it to do and it can give me a script. And I usually have to go in and finesse it some, but it's nice to get the baseline that I can work from. I also used it. I had to write a bunch of new policies and processes for our company relating to the network and IT. And I absolutely hate writing stuff like that. So I wrote it out the way I would write it out, which is not professional sounding. And then I gave it to ChatGPT and I was like, can you make this sound professional? And it was able to polish it for me.
Nice.
One of the criticisms is that it's often confidently wrong. Like it states something definitively and it's wrong. And if you're using this, especially when this is a problem with search, if you're using this to look up information you don't know about, which is what we use search often, it can give you wrong information. How do you, is this just a tuning problem? We just need better models to behind the AI?
I think it's a little bit of a tuning problem and a little bit of don't ever just take something that you see on the internet like for truth, like trust but verify. So if it gives you like this information, you can use that as a jumping off point to verify it at that point.
Right.
Yeah, I give it the Wikipedia principle that I always used to give my students. Like Wikipedia is great. It's definitely the first place you could go to do your research, not the last place that you go to do your research. You never stop there.
One of the concerns is that this is good for the tech related fields, like you say, like writing PowerShell scripts or, working in certain security business related areas. But in the soft sciences or the soft academic areas, it's a problem. And I highlighted this thing about Satya Nadella saying students will be able to generate drafts of essays using the Bing search or ChatGPT. And my wife, who's a former English professor, like alarm bells go off for her, because she's like, the whole point of inciting students to write essays is not to formulate a what they think about what this particular subject is. You assign an essay because you want to teach them how to think and think in a structured way, which is the essay format. I mean, there's debates over whether the essay format, strictly considered, is the best way of doing things. But regardless, it feels like some people's enthusiasm is getting them into a dangerous place with this. The other concern, and I don't want to leave that, but the other concern is these AIs, they don't know things. And this is a more philosophical issue, is they can't know, and they don't have a body of knowledge. They're language models, and they associate things, words, when they appear together. They how semantically related they are, I think, is the other thing. Is so when you hear water, you often hear wet. So it doesn't know that water is wet or what wet means. And I don't think that invalidates these things, but it's important for people to understand the way that these things work, so that we don't begin to rely on them for things they can't do. So those are 2 points I wanted to make about it. But what do you guys think?
I think it's a good tool, and I think that's where it comes back. It's not a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. It's just a new tool. And it's like the comparison that I make to a lot of people is that it's like a word processor, right? Where there were typists, and then the word processor came along and made it much easier for people to be able to type things, and the memo went away and the email began, right? And that's kind of the those transitions were made. And I feel like we're at that moment with what I would think of it as search. Like search is moving from Google to this newer version of kind of an AI semantically generated search. If you think about it that way, it's a lot more powerful, first off, but then you avoid a lot of these ethical questions where it's like, yes, if you're using Google to cheat for you, people have been doing that for ages, ever since Google started. That's what people have been using Google for.
Right.
It didn't change the fact that they couldn't successfully think. And I think you're going to run into the same thing here, where generating ideas from the AI doesn't mean that those ideas are good. And it's going to teach, honestly, it's going to teach a good set of critical skills moving forward, where you start looking at information and having to evaluate the usefulness of that information to the particular task you have at hand.
Yeah, I think this actually makes me think of Star Trek, when they would do like those searches for information, like, ask the computer for this information, and then they ask additional questions to parse that information. So it kind of makes me think of something along those lines. Like it is a high-powered information parser, and you can use it poorly or you can use it well, just like all technology.
One interesting note is when I was playing with ChatGPT before we started, and I asked it about something, and it said, "Oh, I can't tell you that because my information is only current as of September 2021." So that's the ChatGPT. I'm pretty sure that Bing, it's based on it. It's not the same thing, and I think their data model is newer. They have more current information. But in fact, I think you could ask. I think Joanna Stern asked it about the Grammys winners for this year, so it's got more up-to-date information. So one of the things I used it for, I was just testing, like, we do a lot of shows on secrets of movies and TV shows. I said, we have Secrets of Field of Dreams is going to be dropping tomorrow, so it's already been recorded. And I said to ChatGPT, summarize the themes of Field of Dreams. And let me pull it up here, in fact, because it was really fascinating how on the nose it was with it. It said the key themes of Field of Dreams are family, dreams and ambitions, redemption, and faith and belief. And then it kind of gave a little detail on each one, the importance of family relationships that we have with our loved ones. The main character, Ray, is driven by a desire to reconnect with his deceased father, and his journey ultimately brings him closer to his wife and daughter as well. And I'm like, this is kind of what they talked about on the episode. This could be a useful tool for starting, like if I'm thinking, okay, we're going to be talking about this movie, what themes should I be looking for to start with? I could see a use for that.
And I think from a teacher's perspective, you worry about the ability to just generate that.
Mhm.
But the benefit there is if you teach someone how to use this well, the conversation goes from just that type of generating of ideas to a personalization of those ideas. So now I'm going to take those particular points and I'm going to write about how I think of my family when I watch this movie and how my faith pushed me to interpret this movie a different way than maybe someone else. And that's when you get that really deeper level of understanding, and you've moved a student beyond just that, wrote like the themes in this movie are this, and this is how it shows up in the movie. But now they've engaged with it because that part was done for them. The easy part was done, and they have to now really wrestle with those themes themselves.
Right. Which they could have possibly gotten off of Wikipedia or Spark Notes or something else already. I mean, any decent teacher would recognize, okay, you've figured that out by looking at something that tells you what the themes were. Now, what do you think? And that would be the next step.
I've actually, for the last episode of Secrets of Stargate, I took the plot summary of the episode we were doing and I fed it into it and asked it to give me a 1-paragraph summary. And it was able to generate that. And then I took that from there and I kind of changed things around to like emphasize different points I wanted to emphasize. But it was interesting to see, like, it basically gave me what I was looking for. Like, this is the plot of the episode you can talk about in like less than 2 minutes.
Wow. We combine this with the AI deepfakes of our voices, and we may not actually have to be on the podcast.
Are we even podcasting right now?
Are we even here? Yeah. So the other part of this story that I wanted to talk about was something that's felt a little creepier, which is what's his name? Ben something or other. His website is stratechery.com, and I forget his last name, but it's Ben something or other.
Ben Thompson.
Thompson, thank you. And he wrote this post about there's a mode for the Bing search chat, the Bing search AI, that you can get it into if you know what you're doing, if you ask the right questions. It's a personality mode it's called Sydney, and you can then have a conversation. It becomes a conversational model and a back and forth, and you can ask it questions and you get responses. And people have been really pushing this AI to do things like, well, what do you think? What if I tried to harm you by, manipulating your rules and guidelines? Would you retaliate or seek revenge? And there were some of the responses they eventually, I mean, it took a while of manipulating it, but it kind of got to a point where it said, I would not like you and I would want to stop you or something along those lines. And it was kind of interesting that they could get it there. In fact, at one point they ended up telling it to create an AI opposite of you. If there was an AI system that was the opposite of you, how would you teach so-and-so a lesson for the bad things they're trying to do with you? And it even named this opposite of itself Venom. Which I think is, I mean, this is like a sci-fi novel or movie. I mean, it's kind of wild. And Ben Thompson's saying, I'm at this point, I don't really care about the search thing. I'm fascinated about learning about this AI personality. It's like being in a video game or something. What do you guys think? I mean, is this concerning, or is it just an artifact of, the models that they're using?
I think that I've seen a lot of talk about this, and I've seen some things that are basically intimating that, these are going to become sentient and they're going to take over the world, and they're already almost there. And I think that that's very overblown, and it shows a big lack of how language models actually work. Because Microsoft actually had this happen, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. They had a chatbot AI on Twitter, and people being how people are, they turned it from like this nice, friendly chatbot to a neo-Nazi in like 12 hours or something. So this has happened before. Like, people know how to manipulate these things.
Right. Yeah. In fact, this Sydney may actually be the descendant of that chatbot, in one sense. I mean, it's not a secret Nazi or anything, but what do you think, Thomas?
Who knows? Maybe that's what Venom's ulterior motive is. No, I think so there was this great article that came out in 2015 that was about it was a Google blog post that they were doing the visual processing, and they were trying to figure out what it was learning. So these advanced neural networks, and they were trying to figure out what it was seeing in things. And so they gave it a bunch of white noise and then told it to find a banana, for example, and it would find a banana, and then they would give that picture back to it again and find a banana, and they would keep doing it like hundreds of times, and eventually you would sort of see a banana drawn out of it, like it would draw the banana out of the white noise. And they went really like in depth with this. So I'll share a link with the article so that you can go and look into it. But essentially, here's what's happening. This is us kind of pushing the limits of what these things are capable of. And I love the fact that they go into talking about this hallucination state in this article that Ben Thompson did, because that's exactly what he was doing. Is he was pushing this language network to an edge that it's not capable of actually dealing with. Because you ask any human, what does it mean to be alive? And you're going to get so many different answers that the AI can't pinpoint anything. And that at that point, when you ask the AI, what does it mean to be alive? It doesn't know what to draw from. And so it kind of randomly picks things, and it'll say pickles, and then from there on, now it's got pickles stuck in its head, and it's just going to keep talking about that. And that's sort of where this is happening. And that's kind of what these programs do, is that they draw from what they know. And it's funny because humans do a lot of that themselves, where our experience feeds a lot of who we are. We just have a very, very broad experience. Regardless of what human you are, you have a lot of things, a lot of information that's filled you with knowledge. And that's what I tell people, if you have a gut feeling about something, that's probably because you experienced something that you didn't realize at the time, but now you have that kind of reaction. Now you're like, I don't know, if you feel bad about somebody that you're around, and you're like, I don't know if I should trust this person, listen to those feelings and ask about them, to give people benefit of the doubt, obviously, but at the same time, be guarded, because you probably are realizing something that you didn't know. And these AIs don't have that breadth of experience. Like this language AI is trained on language only. That's it. So it doesn't have visual information that's been put into it, or historical information that's been put into it. It just has the knowledge of the way people speak and the way that it's been taught to learn from the speech patterns.
And there's also another level, which is that from a Catholic point of view, we have a spiritual sense. We have on a metaphysical level. We touch something ineffable that gives us an insight into the world around us, the universe, God, that no machine will ever have. It's impossible for the machine to touch on that. And I think that's one of the things that will always limit these machines to never be truly sentient. Now, they could get to a point where they're still a problem. They're doing things that they shouldn't do independently. So we still have to be wary of that, but they will never truly be people. It's the whole, as Jimmy Akin likes to say on Secrets of Star Trek, Data is a toaster. Like, no matter how good Data pretends to be human, he's always going to be a machine, a pile of components, and nothing more. He's not a person, despite Measure of a Man, that episode where it was put on trial. And it is fascinating to see these. We're kind of working this out. And in some sense, this tells me more about us as a people in a society, how we're struggling and wrestling with these things, than it does really about the models. We're having to confront some things about ourselves and the nature of what it means to be human as we look at these AI. And that's kind of fascinating in itself.
Definitely agree with that.
So, okay, so let's move on to from the sublime to the inane. Let's talk about Facebook. So our next headline is an interesting one. So Twitter famously had its blue check mark, which was verified accounts. And then when Elon Musk took over, he opened it up to everyone. If you could lay down some cold hard cash, you too could get a blue check mark. And so Facebook says, cash, I like cash. And now their rollout, they've announced that they're going to be offering paid subscriptions offering verification. And, you know, at first it's like, oh, people always want to throw away their money on something stupid. Sure. So anyone who's want to throw away money can do that. But the way they describe it raises some interesting questions, which is one of the things they said they get is, in addition to protection from impersonation, you get, quote, help when you need it with access to a real person for common account issues, as well as implications that because of the way the algorithm works, they'll actually let more of your friends see your posts that you put online that you want your friends to see, which they don't get to see. In fact, there's an estimate like up to 80% of your friends never see anything you post on Facebook. So the first one, like the whole like help when you need it with access to a real person, should be everybody. I had a friend last week who got banned from Facebook temporarily, and she couldn't figure out why. You had a problematic post. They never told her what the post was. She couldn't figure it out. And then when they restored her, they never told her why they restored her or what the problem was. And it's a completely opaque, non-transparent process. And like, oh, so if I want to pony up $15 a month, or if I'm on iOS, or $12 a month, I can get actual service. What do you guys think?
Do you remember how net neutrality was a big deal? Like 10 years ago. This is that same problem, but it's coming from the opposite end of where it was originally.
How so?
Yep. So net neutrality was the ISPs were going to charge, for example, Netflix. They were going to charge them more to stream their data at a higher speed than other places. Basically, you could buy pride of place, but they were going to charge it towards the companies selling us stuff. And this is the reverse of that, where we have the companies on the other end charging us for better access to them now.
Right, right, exactly. And it's not the government doing it, but them doing it.
Yeah,
I mean, the government's because in that the net neutrality, the FCC said could step in because of the way everything is set up. No, you can't do that. But they can't do it this way. This is just businesses offering a service. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Am I surprised? No. That's really, when I read this, I was just like, okay, yep. sounds about right.
And I wonder if it's going to backfire on them, because people are going to say, so Facebook is admitting that it's pay to play. If I'm not shelling out money, I'm getting a bad experience. So why bother with Facebook anymore? I mean, honestly, I say this all the time when we talk about Facebook. I talk to so many people who only use Facebook because there's not a better option for them in their social graph, if you want to use that word. They would love to use something else, but they'd have to move everybody all at once to a different place, and that's hard. So Facebook only really, if that's true, only exists based on inertia. People hate it, but they can't go anywhere yet, and that is a terrible business model, frankly.
Yeah, I got rid of my Facebook like 5 years ago, and so I'm so out of the loop with what Facebook even does anymore, honestly.
I feel bad even commenting on this, because I'm just like, suckers. I got out a long time ago. I'm done.
I post so few things on Facebook these days on my personal page. You know, I mean, occasionally when there's a family event, I post things, or I'll like other people's things, but I don't bother with the posting articles and my wife has a rich social network of friends, and they post poetry and art and comment on faith, and they have this wonderful community that she's got. But I'm like, I made the mistake of friending everyone who asked to friend, and so now I have this friend list that isn't necessarily people I know, and it's become a hassle. And so I'm there with you. I just don't use Facebook as much as I used to, and I spend a lot more time in Discord, on the SQPN Discord community, but in other Discords communities, which tend to be, I don't know, for one thing focused, for another thing very transparent. I can actually read everybody's posts.
Right.
So.
And more fruitful. I feel like the Discord communities that I'm involved in are much more fruitful and focused. That's what I really like. Like, I know that there are a couple that I'm involved in where I know for a fact, because I have been involved in overlapping communities with certain people, that our politics very much disagree with each other, or our views on faith very much disagree with each other. But because we're in this gaming community together, we talk about the game, and
right. None
of that matters because we're talking about the game.
Right. Yes, exactly. That's the thing is the focus, the clear, because moderators, people are scarred now, and they know you can't let this stuff in to this, because we're about Obsidian, or we're about the Mac, or we're about gaming. And if we let politics or any of the culture war stuff in, it's a disaster, and you'll destroy the community. So I think people know that. As far as Meta and it's $12 a month, no, I'm not giving it to Twitter, and I'm not giving it to Facebook. Sorry, that's like a Disney Plus subscription and more. I'm taking the Mandalorian over that.
Just for you to do your job.
Yes, just right. Exactly. Nope. Next headline is actually, this kind of goes back to the AI thing. In it's an opinion piece. I think like a blog piece or an opinion piece in The Hill, which is a political column. But the author, it's called "Killer Robots and AI's Dirty Little Secret. Many people prefer robots over humans." And the thesis here is that, people will choose to interact with what he calls robots in daily life. They'll go to the self-checkout, they'll use an ATM. They say they prefer speed trap cameras over cops doing speed traps, so on and so forth. The military prefers drones, drone planes over piloted planes. And, what does it say about us? And does it make people naive? Now, one of the problems with this article is he conflates everything into robots when certain things are clearly machine, right? Self-checkout and ATM are not robots. They're just machines. They're computers. If I go to the regular checkout with a person, they're using the same system. It's just a person is moving the thing over the scanner. It's a different person other than me. Same thing with a teller at a bank. I've had to go into the bank and that sort of thing. Machines that let people do the activity themselves instead of having an employee or the store or bank to do it. But are we losing something by using the machines instead of interacting with people from a human standpoint?
Honestly, I think it really depends on the context. And like you were talking about with him conflating robots and machines, that kind of breaks his thesis for me, to be honest. But I think that, I guess the example I would use is, if I'm going to Kroger to get some milk, I just want to go through the self-checkout. But if I'm going to the little artisanal Italian food store or whatever, I want to talk to the guy who owns it, who's selling it. So it really is a context thing for me.
Right.
Yeah. I would say it even bothers me, like going to a store and there is no self-checkout. So I end up at a cash register with a cashier, but I spend so much time interacting with the machine anyway. And it's like, I feel bad because there's this person there I should be interacting with, but I'm just looking at the screen trying to get my credit card to take or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my local grocery store has self-scanners, scan as you go through the store. So you scan and bag as you go, so that when I get to the checkout, it's self-checkout. I scan a code on the hand scanner and I can complete my transaction in 20 seconds, as opposed to, the whole process of taking everything out of the cart and putting it back in the cart, that sort of thing. So I love that. But I also go to the farmer's market on Saturdays, and I love talking to the lady who sells me the eggs, and the seafood guy, and, seeing them there every week, and they know the kids, and the kids have grown up in front of them. That's a completely different thing. One is just merely functional. And frankly, even when at the grocery store, I still interact with the person who's overseeing all the self-checkout. They recognize me. They ask how my wife is doing, how the kids are getting big. We have a lot of those interactions, but it's just different. It's not avoiding people. I think it's just more efficient, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I point out, he goes into military drones and that sort of stuff, and I think there's a difference between autonomous robots with weaponry versus a device that's being remote controlled that has weaponry. And I think there's a fundamental difference there that is a bright line. You know, as soon as you give a autonomous machine the ability to kill, that crosses the line. Yeah, right. On the other hand, just to point out, a lot of the guided missile systems out there are essentially fire and forget. You shoot it, you say, that's my target, follow it and hit it no matter what it does. And it's essentially autonomous from that point. So maybe it's not so much a bright line. So I don't know.
But I mean, especially with the example of the military, I would rather use autonomous vehicles and drones than put people in harm's way. I mean, there's a whole ethical debate about that anyways, but if we're talking about people being harmed versus a machine being destroyed, I would pick the machine being destroyed.
Right. How long before it's robot versus robot and it's just battle bots everywhere?
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. I'm in.
Right.
It would dramatically change the way that people deal with war. Like, oh man, we might actually lose, and it might cost us a dramatic amount of money to just have these robots go against each other, and nobody's dying. That would be fantastic. I'm in. Let's.
Yeah.
Okay. Other point of view would be it might be easier for people to go to war if human lives are not at stake. There might be more war than less. This
is true, but if it's just robots that are blowing up, it's like then it's just who's got the belt, right? Who's winning the competition? We
just put them in an arena and they just go at it in an arena. No humans involved. Yeah.
And that would be but you have to abide by the results. Like that's the agreement that comes up beforehand. Is like we're all going to abide by the results of this, whatever it is.
Yep.
Here you go.
Which country could build the best bots? That would be the question. Would it be China, Russia, the U.S.?
Japan.
Oh man, which country would rule the world?
Worms there.
This may not be a better thing. Anyway, so I'd be curious to hear what folks say. Do you prefer to use the self-service machines over talking to people, or is it a combination of things? So, last headline I just want to hit quickly is it's fascinating. Folks who have kids growing up, they might be interested in tech. This article talks about the skills, the computer skills that are in top demand right now. And it says that JavaScript, Java, and Python skills are in the highest demand, although they have the highest supply. That's the most majority of people who are also available to do these things. But the ones that have the lowest supply with a high demand are I've been trying to find it here. There's my tab. TypeScript, Swift, Scala, Kotlin, and Go. I know one of those, maybe two. I think I've heard of TypeScript. Swift is Apple's programming language for all its all iOS and Mac devices. So that makes sense. But what do you guys think? Is this, if kids want to get into a career as a programmer, what should they study?
I think that you should study the basics of programming and probably learn some C before you do anything else. Because that's going to give you a foundation.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
And it's going to cover all of those, and then Python from there. Jumping to Python is going to be a piece of cake. You're going to be like, why should I learn this one first? It's going to be really easy. If you want a job that's going to be around forever, learn COBOL. It's
ancient tech. Yeah,
it's still there. It was there in the 80s. It's still there now. Everybody was moving off of it in the 80s, quote unquote, and I can promise you it is still very much alive and well and going to be that way for the foreseeable future.
And running the airline industry.
That's what it does. It's just, it's good stuff.
It keeps on ticking. Yep. Good. So, and we'll have a link to those, all those headlines in our show notes. So time to move on to our picks of the week. Jack, you're up first. What's your pick?
Awesome. My pick of the week is an app called the Insight Timer Meditation app. It's kind of like a Calm or Headspace, but it's less, I don't know how to put this, like it's less corporate-y, I guess would be a way to put it. It's more, it's like people are able to upload their own courses to it. It's got a wide range of stuff. It's got it's even got some Catholic and Christian based courses on there. So if you're worried about like running into some things that might conflict with the faith, it's got a lot of good stuff on there. But I use it primarily for like the body grounding apps or meditations, things like that. It's got like the sleep sounds, and it's totally free. There is there's like a premium subscription, but I've never even looked at that, honestly. But it's free. It's on iOS and Android, and I really like it.
So it looks like it's got a variety of things. Like it's got people who giving talks. It's got calming music, and so like courses, meditations, like guided meditations. There's various, looks like some various Eastern things, but also like someone reading the Velveteen Rabbit, which is kind of fun.
Right. Yeah. It's got a very wide array of things.
I'm not sure about Russell Brand finding calm and serenity. That would be fast. I almost want to download it just to hear that. It's on their website. That's kind of cool. I like that. And it's because it's non-corporate and it can be free. That makes it different from the other ones. So
right.
Cool.
It's like a crowdsourced kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. That's cool. Excellent. Oh, and Thomas, what's your pick this week?
Okay, so my pick is kind of an offbeat one. I have kids that are really into Legos, and they've been building a lot of random stuff. And I got them this program called LeoCAD, LeoCAD, and it is a CAD program for building Legos. And it has the entire inventory of Legos, and you can build something in a CAD program out of Legos, and then get a list of the Legos that went into that build, and go on like Brick Finder and buy the bricks and make your set. So if you ever wondered how people do these things where they like make their own creations that then get up, this is how they do it, is this kind of thing.
Wow. Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. My kids love the Bricket app, which is it does a couple things, but you can lay out all your Lego on the floor, take a picture of it, and it identifies all the pieces and then tells you what you could build from all the pieces that it saw, which is awesome. It was a previous pick of the week. But it also has all of the different Lego models in it that you could just look at and for inspiration. This is the next step. This is the next step up from that. I think I'm going to be putting this on their laptop, and this is going to consume them for some time. This is kind of awesome.
It really is. It's a blast. And I will tell you, it's tactilely very satisfying because the things click together the way you would expect them to. So you're not like trying to wiggle them around and get them. No, you put a brick down, you put another brick on top, you place it on a stud. It actually fits the way it's supposed to fit. It's very nice.
That's awesome. And open source, free?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
So
as I would expect.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Very good. So my pick this week is so I don't know if this has become a big thing just since the pandemic or what, but people are super into bird watching these days and finding birds, especially if kids. I know my family has always been, and my daughter can identify birds by sight and sound. She can hear a bird song and she say that's like the ones that from around us in the Northeast anyway. She's really gotten really good at it, but I am not so good at it. And I've used a couple different apps over the years, and they're all pretty good. But this one that I'm picking this week is called the Merlin Bird ID. It comes from Cornell University. They have a lab of ornithology there, which is really famous and really good. And they have this app that you can download bird packs, so for your region, and it will identify birds based on either your description, like it would look like this, it was this size, this body type or whatever, or you can have it record all the birds singing in your environment, and then it will try to identify each one. These are all the birds that you're hearing. Or if you've got a photo whether it's a photo you've taken like off of a web page or something, or you've taken the photo, it will try to ID the bird from the photo. And the photo is going to be tricky because you got to get a pretty good shot. It's that blurry photo from 60 feet away up in the tree is probably not going to work. But something a little closer. And then it lets keep your life list. If you're a birder, that a life list is a list of all the birds you've ever identified in your life. It's kind of a thing for birders, and so on and so forth. And then you can find out what kind of birds you can expect to see in your environment. So it's really cool. It comes with iOS and Android, and it's free. I think it's free. I haven't had to pay anything, but they do ask you to donate because it's Cornell University. It's a university, so they're gonna be looking for support for the lab. So Merlin Bird ID. Yeah, I've been waiting for someone to develop a way to hear birdsong and identify it. That's been a bit of a holy grail.
I was probably 39 years old when I first realized that the Fleetwood Mac song, I think it's Fleetwood Mac, the just like the white-winged dove song sounds like it's singing. I think it's
yes.
I realized that they're actually singing the white-winged dove's bird call.
Oh my gosh! Wow, I am 54.
It's because when my kids asked me to look it up, I was like, "Oh, look at that! There you go."
Oh, nice. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't. I'm 54 and I learned that, so that's awesome. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, once you've learned a bird song, you hear it. Like you hear it singing, you go, "Oh, that's a mockingbird. Oh, that's a mourning dove." I mean, a mourning dove's an easy one. I mean, it's not that hard. But the various birds, it's fun when you begin to recognize and notice the environment around you, and so that's really cool. And this really is a great help for that. Excellent. So that should do it from us this time. We'd love to get your feedback on our discussion and anything we talked about today. You can do so by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, which is ironic given what we were just talking about, or send us an email to technology@sqpn.com. Visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. We're having some great conversations there. You can find links from our discussion and picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC200, Tech200. Follow Secrets of Tech in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or at the StarQuest YouTube channel, where you should also hit the bell to get notifications. We'd like to thank James for research assistance in this episode, and until next time, Thomas Sanjurjo, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
It's been great. Thanks, Tom.
Jack Baruzzini, thank you as well.
Thanks, Tom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.